Hey guys, so today I'm here with somebody special, Camay Trammell with Truly Title here in Cleburne, Texas. She's the go-to escrow officer, and I'm here to interview her questions to find out what do people at title companies actually do. So, how are you doing, Camay?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'd like to ask you a few questions so to uncover what actually goes on at title companies.
Okay.
So I have a list of a few questions here for you. The first one is, what do you actually do during the title search? What kinds of issues do you find most often?
Okay. So as an escrow officer, we have an examination team that we send all of our title work to. So when you send me a contract, we then submit that to our plant, is what we call it. That plant then runs title work. So they're looking for any tax liens, they're federal or state. They're looking for child support liens. They're looking for mortgages. They're looking for anything like that that could become a cloud on title or something that has to be dealt with prior to us closing. So all those things go on Schedule C of your title commitment. You got A, B, C, and D. That everything goes on Schedule C that they find when they're running title, as far as liens and any encumbrances that could show up. So we pull that, and then after the title examination is done, then they send all of that title work back to us as the local office. When we get it back, we review the title work, and we see from there what all we need to cure or handle prior to closing. So all of those things have to be handled. If it's bad enough, you as an agent will hear from me. But if it's something that I think that we can handle on our own, if it's a probate, if it's a probate, somebody's deceased, if there's a divorce, those kinds of things will be brought to our attention. It helps as an agent when say it's your listing, that if you talk to your seller and you find out all the juicy details of stuff that we may need to handle ahead of time, and you bring it to me and you're like, Camay, I have a new listing. I'm going to need some help. There's a deceased party, there's a divorce going on, there's all these things, so I can get ahead of it, so we can still stay within that dream era, that dream closing frame of like 30 days.
So would solar leases and things like that, would that be the kind of thing you'd be interested in?
That would show up too. Those are a lot more prevalent right now, and tricky, because a lot of buyers don't want to take on that lease.
Exactly.
And so they've got to be paid off at closing. And so,
what's the most kind of common result you find from solar leases? Do you find that sellers pay them off first, or do you find that the new buyers take them on, or do you find out that it's only come to fruition at the title?
So far, everything that I've seen is sellers are having to pay them off at closing. And a lot of times we'll take them with them. And so then that presents a whole new set of problems for the house, or the roof, or the
Wow.
And so it does have to be handled. Lenders will not allow it to be kept on there and then the buyer take on that. Yeah. I mean, not a lender that I've seen so far. I'll just put it that way. Typically they are wanting that to be paid off, so there's no lien on the property ahead of their lien as the new mortgage.
Clean and clear. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. And what happens if you do find a lien judgment or a cloud on title?
It's got to be handled.
Yeah.
It has to be handled regardless. There's no way around it. It has to be either paid off at closing. If it's already been paid off, we have to have a release of lien that we can file at closing. Or if it's a cloud, like a gap in title, something like that has to be handled as well before we can close. We can't close and issue title insurance unless everything's clear.
Can you explain some of the legal terms that I'll see in documents, things like easements, chain of title, encumbrance, or affidavits?
Mm-hmm. So the first one, what was the first one? Was
easement.
An easement. So an easement is just an agreement between parties. So say you owned a property next to me, and so say mine's at the back. Well, I'm going to have to use yours to get to mine. Well, you're going to have to grant me an easement to get there. That easement is just an agreement. There can also be an easement for utility access for utilities to access your property. What was the next one?
Chain of title.
Chain of title is So say I own a property, I'm the current owner, the prior owner would be you.
Yeah.
The one before you that owned it,
That's the chain.
that's the chain.
Yeah,
It carries on down.
Encumbrance. Sounds like a complicated word.
Encumbrance is anything that encumbers that property. So if it's going to be your liens, it's going to be anything that kind of ties up your property.
Cool. Do I really need an owner's title insurance, or is the lender's policy enough?
So the lender's policy only covers that lender.
Yeah.
And they have to have it. They will not close. You can't close in the state of Texas with a loan and not have a title policy. That lender's going to be covered. They want the collateral protected.
Yeah.
So it makes sense if that lender wants coverage. Why wouldn't you want coverage?
Yeah.
So the coverage is needed, obviously, if a lender wants it. But then, as
It'd
you
be
as a buyer,
irresponsible to not have
it would be irresponsible. And I mean, this is most people's biggest investment in their life.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you
Well,
want to
I wouldn't
cover it?
cover it.
Yeah, you cover a car.
Yeah.
And that's, a
Most
quarter.
do.
Yeah, most do. You should. But that's definitely, it's a big investment. So why not,
Exactly.
have that insurance policy?
So, what is your process to protect against wire fraud during closing? Because we hear a lot about wire fraud, don't we?
We do hear a lot about wire fraud. I actually just finished a closing. And I was talking to them about that. They were saying that they didn't have their wiring instructions with them. And I explained that if they wanted to wire, they would have to come back and see me in person. I can't accept wiring instructions over the phone or via email after closing. If you want to change your wiring instructions after I've met with you and closed with you at the table, you're going to have to come up to see me again and look me in the eye and give me those different wiring instructions, because I want to know it's you changing them, not somebody else acting like you.
There's so much fraud going on these days.
It is so much fraud.
So, how much are your fees, and can you give me a breakdown of what's included?
Okay, so our escrow fee is the fee that covers the bulk of what we do. So that's what I talked about: the plant running the title work, us handling the closing, the notary part of it, the wire transfer. All of that is included in that escrow fee, and that's $595, and that covers all of it. The other thing on the other fee is going to be your title policy, and that is set by the state of Texas. We do not set that. It is based on a percentage of the sales
I was
price.
going to say, do these fees change much from title company to title company?
It can. Your escrow fee can change, but the rest of the fees are pretty much set in stone. The title policy is set by the state. No title company controls that. It's based on the sales price, on a percentage of the sales price. We don't charge a wire fee. Again, that's included in the escrow fee. The recording fees are set by your county. And so those are based on the page count of the recordable documents. So like your deed of trust, your warranty deeds, however many pages, that recording fee is based on that. Then you've got your attorney fee, and he's doing that for preparation of the documents. So like your warranty deeds, your release of liens, he's preparing those. If he has to do an affidavit of heirship, instead of a probated will on a transaction, he charges for that. So
the page count, does that change just purely by the number of previous owners, or is it more like how many liens are on the property, or is it all of these things together?
No, that doesn't necessarily affect it. What affects it is attorneys and how they prepare their deed of trust. So that deed of trust, if they're wordy, I have some that are 35 pages. Some deed of trust are 12. It just depends on that attorney and what all they feel that they need to cover to protect the bank in that transaction.
I see. And will I close at your office, online, or somewhere else? What would I expect on the day of closing?
On the day of closing, you will come in. If you close at our office, you come in, you get comfortable, and then you meet me in the closing room, and we go over all your documents. You provide first with your driver's license so I can verify your identity. And then if you're a buyer, you provide me with your closing funds. If you've wired them in, great. If you've brought me a cashier's check, we will verify that. We sign all your closing documents, and then we go take a picture.
You're always good hosts.
Yes, thank you. If you're a seller, same process, except for you get funds, obviously, instead of giving funds to me at closing. But we try to make, by the time you get to closing day, we try to make that such a fun process for everybody.
Yeah. If I'm selling, when do I get my money?
So that is A lot of things go into that. But best case scenario, if the buyer gets me their funds in time, in ahead of time of closing, you should get your funds within a couple hours of the closing time. It's going to depend on, again, if there's a lender. If there's a lender, we have to wait on their approval. So that lender gives me funding approval and they give me their wire, then I can get those funds out to that seller same day. As long as it all happens before 4 o'clock, which is our wire cutoff.
4 o'clock. Do you handle unusual cases like inherited property, trusts, or investment purchases?
We do.
Yeah.
We handle all of those. I've got a trust that we're working on right now for closing tomorrow.
Awesome. And finally, what is the weirdest or most unexpected thing that's ever happened at a closing table?
Oh, that is an interesting one. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. I was doing a closing. This was 7 or 8 years ago. And as I was closing, there was a lady sitting next to me. There was a gentleman at the end of the table. And then the 2 signers for my transaction were across from me, a man and a woman. So I walk into the room, I introduce myself. They all just say hello. They don't give me names, but my 2 signers are sitting in front of my signing pad. So I, context clues, I decide that they're my signers. I've got their ID so I can verify it. That is who I'm signing. They had different last names, but that happens. Sometimes people are either get married or aren't married yet, but their licenses haven't changed. So I'm verifying all my information, going through the closing. A little bit of chit chat, not a ton. This lady beside me hasn't said anything yet. The man at the end of the table hadn't said anything. So I'm talking to my signers. We're closing the transaction. We get to a document that we had called the marital status affidavit. And as I'm going through that, the man is kind of stumped on his, and the lady just signs her name, checks single, and slides it back over to me. And then he kind of hauls around and he says, well, what do you mean? How do I fill this out? And I said, well, there's 4 choices: married, divorced, widow, widower, or single, never been married. I said, so everybody fits into one of those 4 categories. And he was like, well, I don't know that I do. And I was like, no, you for sure do. You for sure do. And he said, well, I've been married for 9, we've been married, but I've been separated for 9 years. And I said, okay, so married. And he was like, well, and I go, no, for sure you're married. If you haven't gotten a divorce, then you're married. And he was like, okay. And I said, well, hang on. So I go back through his documents and I'm looking at his loan application where he has stated he's single. And so now that's a big red flag. And I said, okay, well, this isn't going to work because you've said on your loan application that you're single and you are in fact married. And he was like, but I'm separated. And I said, that doesn't matter. I said, I've got to have legal terms here. Legal terms is you are married. And he said, okay, then yeah, I guess I am married. And I was like, okay, well then that means that these documents are no longer valid because everything in here states that you're single. And if we continue with this transaction and I let you finish signing, that's loan fraud. You've committed loan fraud at this point. So I can't move forward. So give me a minute. I've got to go talk to your loan officer and find out if she can revise these documents to show you are in fact married. And then she's going to have to revise my deed of trust showing, again, you're married. And then we'll go from there. So I'll be right back. So I take all the papers. I leave the room. I go talk to the loan officer and she's like, are you kidding? He told me that they're single. So she goes, this isn't going to happen today. They've got to go back to the underwriter. I've got to submit that he's married. I've got to find out her information, all the things. She said, but give me a minute. Let me call. Let me see if I can get this done. Give me about 15 minutes. So I go back in there and I'm trying to get some more information out of him. And I said, so this is what she said so far. It's possible that, this isn't going to happen today because of these reasons. And he said, okay. He goes, well, yeah, I'm married, but I said, so why did you answer single? And he goes, well, because him and the other signer, the lady, he said, we were signing these forms together and it said, are you married? And we're not to each other. And I said, okay, well, that wasn't the question. The question was, are you married at all? Yeah. And I said, okay, well, I said, in the event that we're able to pull a rabbit out of a hat here and get this done today, I said, would it be possible? Do you know where your wife is? Have you have you talked to her? I mean, 9 years is a long time to be separated from somebody. I said, she's going to have to sign these documents.
Yeah.
You know, so I said, if we're able to get this done and that she can get the push through the underwriter, we can get revised documents, all of this, are you going to be able to find her to get her signature today? And he's like, he gets this big grin. He goes, oh yeah, I can find her. And I go, okay, great. Like, you might want to start making that phone call. And he's like, oh, I don't have to make a phone call. And I said, okay. And it was getting kind of weird. And finally he goes, she's close. And I go, great. He goes, she's real close. And I go, okay. Like, I'm getting tired of this now. Like, what are we doing? He goes, she's right there. And I whipped around, and it's this woman that's been sitting next to me in this chair.
Silent the whole time.
The whole time. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, so now I'm looking back across at them. They're a couple.
Yeah.
But he's brought his wife to the closing with whoever this woman is. And I'm assuming their connection gave me a relationship vibes. And so I thought, oh boy. I said, okay, well, I'm going to go back out and talk to your loan officer and see what we can get done today. And I flew out of the room because I was afraid my face was not going to be able to keep any more secrets. And so I left the room and I talked to the loan officer. She's like, oh my gosh, yeah, no, there's no way that we're going to be able to get this done today. Scrap it. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board. So that contract ended up terminating because of that whole situation. A month later, I walked into the closing room, another transaction, because I had told them before they left that day, I'm like, listen, this, I hate it, but this is, we're saving you from prison, honestly, because the law for,
it goes through that.
It's anywhere from 2 to 99 years in prison for committing loan fraud. Like, it's not a thing.
Federal crime.
It's a federal offense. Yeah. And so they were understanding, they were nice. And I said, so what you need to do, if you're wanting to buy a house with her and not include her, I guess, you're going to need to get a divorce, like a legal divorce, because you've got to go through the legal processes. And the lady, when I said that to her, she goes, well, I guess I should get a divorce too. What? Well, so they were both married, not to each other. Her to somebody else, him to somebody else, trying to buy a house together.
Was
for
her
what
husband
reason?
there as well?
No.
Was he one of
The other guy at the end of the table was the realtor who didn't say a word the whole time, just sat there kind of like staring off into space, and I kept looking at him for help, and he never said a word.
So he was looking awkward at all.
Yeah. And so, anyways, about a month later, all of a sudden, we get another contract. And the first thing, as soon as I see their names, I'm like, check their divorce records, like find out if they're married, single, whatever. And they brought their divorce.
Well, they got it done quick.
They did.
Yeah.
They had got, apparently it wasn't contested or anything. So a month after that, I walk into the closing room. There they all are. It was like somebody had hit replay. Same lady sitting next to me. Same realtor, man, woman, same thing.
Wow.
And I said, are we going to try this again? And I said, this time everything's on the up and up, and y'all are divorced and I guess not married to each other yet, and welcome back. I didn't know what to say.
It went through much smoother that time.
It did, but it was very funny, and some jokes were made, and it was very fun. But they got to end up in the end buying that house. But that is by far the weirdest.
Time yet.
There's time yet. Yeah, you never know what you might bring me, but
Absolutely.
Hopefully nothing that exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me interview and uncover some of the mysteries surrounding title.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. And if you guys want more videos like this, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos just like it. Thank you.